Well, it's obvious. Um, Having reestablished a real-time dialogue contact with the being I've been talking about for years, called Beniko, she has answered a lot of questions. She wants me to go with her. It's the dialogue from her is clear. It's not spirit box sessions. It's clear. Clear as me talking right here. And she's made it clear to me. She wants me to go with her into her world. I don't know what to do. I don't know what that means, if I'm being honest. I'm not entirely sure what that means. The implications of this are enormous. I mean, you're talking about basically, as it implies, falling into another universe, another reality, another dimension, by means of their device, what they do. The FBI call it the aliens from other dimensions, as people call them, or as ancient people knew them as the fairies, the wood sprites. Today they seem to be the alien-human hybrids that I suspect, from what I'm hearing, have been around a long time. And you could write a whole other book based on what she's telling me. You could sit down and just interview her all afternoon and night, and just these answers are long, not yes, no, they're clear, not, you have to, it's very clear. In my last video in the forest, my son and I did an EVP session, which is electronic voice phenomena. You take a standard digital recorder, nothing fancy, and they're usually pretty sensitive. The microphones are pretty sensitive on those. They don't seem to be that, it's not very sensitive on my video for whatever reason. I don't know. Because if I can get it all on one go in one video, that would be great. I've got to think about upgrading the equipment to something with a much more sensitive. But then Steve Huff of the HuffPost, he's a paranormal researcher on YouTube. Look him up, HuffPost. He does a lot of spirit box sessions. He's been using a digital recorder built in the 1990s, and he says it's nothing special. Perhaps it's just the type of microphone certain video equipment has, and digital recorders have other types of requirements. I don't know. I've spoke to her again tonight. I have, I've been writing everything down in my diary. So there's hard copies of sessions, and this is another notebook. And I've got my digital recorder and, what I can hear anyways. And, that goes along with what she said back in 1992. It sure does. She was talking about my going away and leaving with her. But to where? The next sets of questions will hopefully give an answer to that. I don't know. God. this is no game. I mean, I'm bringing you what I'm getting. I I'm, as I said in my videos, I love my kids, love my cats. There's people here I care about. It. Go away with her to her world would imply going off to, well, I don't know. I'm being silly about it. Neverland. Where, if I am an orphan in real life, I'm an orphan. As one lady seemed to think. What was that? There was a bit of light. I just saw that. What in the hell? That's my lamp. Let's bring the lamp out. I have nothing that would have... Okay. Can you do that again if you're in the room? The mirror. Oh, that's nothing. That's just the reflection from that. That's a bolt, and that's a bolt there on the mirror. That's a bolt. Benika, if you're in this room, can you produce some form of evidence or light for me on camera? Can you do that again? Please, on camera, anything. Okay. Can you make a noise? Can you say I'm here? I know this isn't exactly a very quiet setting. My kids are in the back room watching a movie. And I didn't intend to do this when I went to make this video. I think it's really sweet that this little sweetie, darling girl, this Benika, she loves me the way she does. That's very sweet. That's a very special feeling. I feel very special that you love me the way you do. And you're just adorable, aren't you? And I love you too. It's very sweet of you. It's very special inside. It's just amazing. I'm not trying to manipulate you into making lights here, but that's a bit scientific of me, isn't it? It's like I'm always trying to grab the gold in this, trying to grab the money shot. And here come, I love you. Watch. I love you. I love you, Beniko. I mean, it's not very nice. If I had her in front of me, I was walking down the street, I'd be like, hey, here she is, ladies and gentlemen. You can see her at Las Vegas and Lake Tahoe on the 17th. Come on down and bring the kids. That's to be $49.99 adult, and children get in at half price. What the hell am I doing? It's like, great, sweetie, we got a little thing going here. You appear to me physically, and we'll go to Vegas. Here come the big bucks. That's horrible. Put a thumbs down. Cut me to, someone shout at me for that. Put a comment. Say, you asshole. This being loves you and you're running around trying to grab evidence over all the time. I'm watching I'm looking. Can you, in that mirror, Beniko, can you appear and make your face appear in that mirror? Can you appear in that mirror, please? Can you appear here around me? It's truly remarkable. Contact with her in the last month and a half has just blossomed. And as I said, I'm over the moon about it. I have direct contact with her. I have to admit that some of the things I've asked her, the responses I got weren't what I expected, or what I thought I remembered happened in 1992. I was kind of like, I don't remember that. But she was answering in complete sentences and telling me. And then she reminded me of some of what she had told me. About the different teams that were to come out and visit me in the 1990s from the intelligence community that were abducting me against my will. About the operations, about their motives, of what they were doing, why they were doing it, what they hoped to gain by that, what was going on. Why do they need to try to hypnotize me or manipulate my mind? Why were they trying to convince me out of this connection with you, Beniko? I don't understand that, because the one that they needed to get to or do that with was you. And I love you, and it's you have the upper hand here with where you are, higher dimension, telepathy, and all like that. You can pretty much, you're the one that, I love you and I love being connected with you, but really the other lover in this, the other partner in this is the one with the stronger force. She's like a little Jedi, and I'm just an ordinary guy, and she comes across as having all this extraordinary whatever, and I'm the one that, well, they did. That was the whole thing of 1992. When I'm thinking about it, they got her, had her, went to hurt her. I was told by some colonel after the experience that they had killed her. And then he showed me a photograph of this girl with large eyes, dead, eyes open, and there was like a large ejecta plume or projectile blast out cavity on the side of the skull of this larger than life head, larger eyes, this girl just black hair, dead. And sometime thereafter that, a memory resurfaced also that they wanted to really convince me she was gone. And a army troop carrier showed up to my courtyard in Texas. And these guys, there was no one in that courtyard other than mom and stepdad, in the house. And it was daytime. They got out, stood there, and there was an awful stench of defecating flesh or something rotting. And they opened up the back of the troop carrier and pulled back the green canvas, lowered the gate. And they were very brutal and blunt about it, like soldiers. I was in the army. I know how they are. And they're just following orders. And they just pulled this body down that had become rigor mortis. Rigor mortis is when a body goes stiff. And like if you find a dead cat or dog on the side of the road, it's just kind of as if she'd stuck in that position. And then this body they brought down had black hair, and it just kind of hit the ground. The troop carriers are pretty high up on the back of the bed of the truck, and these wheels are high, and it came down and just kind of thud, hit the ground and rolled, and it was an awful, like an almost tangy, I don't want to say sweet smell, but it was a very freshly putrefying, freshly rotting flesh smell. Very, very, it was like, it was really awful. And that body, in fact, had the hole in its head, and that kernel that came out to me. I didn't want to talk. I'm not his friend, wasn't their buddy or anything like that. I mean, I didn't like talking to him, but he was there with that woman to tell me that he said he put a gun to her head and killed her. So then I get contacted by these people over the years who are saying quietly on Facebook, we're intelligence and we're not going to, you don't have to believe what we're going to say to you, but we're going to say it. We know that you were told that she's dead. And I hadn't said anything like that to the public, so that caught my attention. And I says, oh, okay. And they said, so stop looking. Okay, she's dead. That being, they had her and they killed her. Well, then there's this memory I have of my future self showing up that night when they brought her to me in 1992, and we interacted face to face. And I don't know how that night ends. It completely ends, but I know I have a memory of seeing this guy show up with glasses, an old guy, middle-aged guy. He arrives to the courtyard over mother and stepdad's house in a triangular craft. And I thought when the triangular craft arrived, you're going to see an alien hop off or something that's going to grab this girl. But this middle-aged guy with glasses and a baseball hat stand there and wearing some kind of an outfit. And he says, I'm here for the girl. From that, long story short, it's me. It was my future self. Well, okay, that's bizarre. But then that colonel and that woman with the photograph of the dead girl with the big eyes is saying that didn't happen. And that sergeant lady, whatever she was, she says, sir, Jason's remembering events of that night that don't coincide with our memories. And so they seem to just want to kind of convince me of the fact that she's dead. Well, okay. Sometime later, I get contacted by that sergeant lady, and she is having one hell of a panic attack, a bad time with this. And she said, I'm calling you. I'm not supposed to be calling you. She said, but I think you might have the answer to this. And I said, what's going on? She said, that girl is gone. I said, well, I know that. You said that she was killed. Well, all these memories are resurfacing from the early 90s, and it's not making a lot of sense. It's like, I don't remember how the night ended that I was with Benico and the military had us in custody. But I know that when they're visiting me after that night, I know what they're talking about when they show up to me. That doesn't make any sense to me when I'm looking back on it. It doesn't make any sense now. I'm like, what? But I know those are actual memories. Because I've had people come to me and actually confirm to me, yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. And then they filled it. And then they told me things that I was like, I'd only wrote down and no one knew about. I'm like, well, I know they're telling the truth. And that's what they don't want. They don't, whoever the intelligence community is, they don't want us, people like me, to get goaded on by others to confirm things. They know that when they use memory altercation technology on us, memory suppression technology, they know that when we go back to get memories recalled, they know from research it's going to seem like remembering a dream. That it's going to seem dreamy. They know that. The woman called me very scared, very frightened, and I said, well, what do you mean she's gone? And she said they had her in cold storage in a vault in a base somewhere below ground, and paperwork on her and everything. And I mean, she was in a dead panic attack. She had anxiety. You could tell she was blowing anxieties constantly. You could hear the butterflies in her stomach. You could hear she might be just sitting there passing gas all day, getting that really scared feeling people get when they get scared and they're passing a lot of wind. You could get that sense this woman this was a soldier, a veteran soldier. I'd imagine she'd probably even seen action in the Gulf War. You know, she was a veteran. She'd been in the military at least all through the 80s. I mean, she was a sergeant. She'd been in a while, 10 or 12, 14 years she'd been in. And a big woman too, not a little woman. She was a big, 6 foot tall, you know, not an alien or anything. And for her to sound frightened, it was really freaking me out. And she said that the paperwork had disappeared on her, that she's no longer in the vault, a locked, sealed, cryogenic, freezing vault where the body, she said, was being kept. She said all that was gone. And I just kind of thought, well, maybe they came and got her. And she said, well, we've got others, and they're not gone. They're there. And I said, well, I reminded her, well, I do remember my future self showing up that night to get her. And I said, this could be, somehow I understood this and knew it. And I said, this is timeline merging. I'd always been into physics since I was 11 years old, and I just had to throw this at her. And I said, this could be a merging timeline. I've always, in theories of time travel growing up, I grew up watching Back to the Future and all the other time travel movies and read books, and not fiction books, but you know, physics and all that. Just kind of a lot of it was some schooling, a lot of self-taught. Some kids go straight through college. I grew up with an affinity for it, and so it was like it was answering some questions and theories that had already been out there, and I was like kind of thinking it was cool. She didn't think it was cool. She was scared, and she said, well, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to disappear? And I says, no, what's going to happen is you may end up continuing to have a memory of that night the way you think it happened, and you may think you killed her, but there's going to be no evidence of the body anywhere in existence, nor the paperwork to back up where she went. No one of her race came and got her. I came and got her. My older self came and got her. Somehow got in contact with them in the distant future, went back to that night, picked her up, and the timeline is merging. It's not like Back to the Future where you click, you know, go back in time, everything just... Marty McFly wakes up in the movie Back to the Future, and he goes into the front room of his family house, and they've all changed quite abruptly, quite instantly. These glasses are a bit better. My eyes are terrible. And he's like, Dave, what are you wearing? And he's wearing the same clothes from the other timeline. Well, in merging timeline theory and physics, that wouldn't happen. Marty McFly would wake up in the time he left, but he would see over a progressive period of weeks his family shifting into the other timeline. It's kind of freaky. He'd like wake up each morning and see something a little bit different. Back to the Future suggests it happened all in one go. There it was. Everything was different. But it may be that way because 30 years had passed in the timeline. Now, in this instant, I don't know. That's the theory, because we'll know. Because if I came back 30 years to get her, presumably from around this time period, well, then that should have been the case anyways. So I'm assuming the woman contacted me within weeks of the event in 1992. All right, okay, so that would be right, because the theory that the merging timeline would then, switch over within weeks. It wouldn't take months or years. So then in theory, the being I'm connecting with now, Beniko, in the forest, is alive and well. She's there. And I've seen her and been talking to her. This is no ghost. Well, how do we know that? Well, first of all, I did a lot of recordings back in the old house in Ipswich, as you can see here on my YouTube channel, and I had to do a lot of PSP-7 Spirit Box sessions where she came through. I tried EVP sessions, I tried a lot of that stuff. I went to the forest in Ipswich and nothing happened. All I got were a bunch of 7-foot mantids. You know, and they came up, no disrespect, thank you for the evidence, but no Beniko. And so geographically in space-time as well, in this part of the world, in Felixstowe, down here in the forest in Felixstowe, here she is, alive and well. in that vicinity, in that forest, in this space-time continuum we've now met. Curious. So this is a bootstrap paradox. We've met here, but this is where it begins. And that's why these events in the past can happen, because it happened in the future. I'm going to close the video. I didn't mean to waffle on. But, yeah, that's what's happening. If it was a spirit or ghost, then one would expect to get the EVP recordings for the last 8 years since the memory came back to me in 2010. They wouldn't be now attached or associated to that specific area in that forest, and now be doing this. This is real-time contact. I mean, I've seen her not just on the video machine. I mean, I'm looking right at her in the forest. I'm seeing her in these videos. She's right there, and I'm hearing her, and I've got her on the EVP. I'm picking her up. Even in the forest, I'm hearing her without any equipment. So she's in a envelope, kind of another spatial space-time behind like a glass wall, if you will. It's like being behind a glass wall. There's another dimension where she's alive and well. And the question I asked tonight was, am I going to see you physically in person like I did in 1992? And she says, yeah, when you get here with me. Oh, okay. When I get there with you. Okay, so where is there? And that's the question I asked her in 1992, and it's in my book, Benico the Sassani, published years back. YouTube videos 2012, I said that's what she said. That was the one thing that was unanswered. Well, where exactly is there, Benico? Before the soldiers brought her to me, we're still not answering that question, sweetheart. Yes, I love you. It's loving. It's sweet. I love you. It's wonderful. It's special. It's loving. But I don't know where there you're talking about is. So don't be shy about it. I know you can hear me. Let's get that question answered, sweetheart. I'd like to know where there is. I'd like to know that. Somehow I got a suspicion I'm going to run across that priest from Scotland, the Falkirk story, the legend of that priest 300 years ago that met the fairies in the forest, and apparently he learned too much about them, and they took off with him. Some say he died of a heart attack, and he's buried in a tomb. Some have said the tomb is empty, and that was a cover. He wrote this book about these fairies and whatnot, and he disappeared, and he's been trying to get out. See, it's all connected. This is what's weird. England is full of these sort of things. So you mean I've come 27, 28 years full circle into a bootstrap paradox to a land of all places in Felixstowe where that forest, that woodland, that place right out there is where she's at? I'm not at the end of the story, I'm at the beginning. Good thing I'm into physics, because that would kind of freak me out a bit.